Okay, this you have to see. In the aftermath of the last presidency, some media outlets have continued to interview the children of the former guy, really his two adult sons, Donald Trump Jr. and occasionally Eric Trump. Eric Trump is nowhere near as he's nowhere near as good as Don Jr. during these TV appearances, and he appeared on the Greg Kelly Newsmax show and delivered a bizarre, nearly 2-minute word salad that truly rivals anything we've heard from Donald Trump himself. Apparently, the apple really doesn't fall far from the tree. And I challenge you to tell me what on earth is Eric Trump talking about. The headline at the bottom of the screen, presumably the topic of the interview, is what does Joe Biden do in a day? Now, without even seeing what Eric Trump says, it's already funny. Because Donald Trump played golf on something like the 18 or 19% of the days of his presidency. He essentially did no real work during the last 6 to 8 months of that presidency. But somehow now the story is, what exactly is Joe Biden doing? Put that aside, watch this, and I challenge you. Tell me what Eric Trump is even talking about. See if you can figure it out.
Well, I mean, in my whole life, Greg, I've seen it, right? I mean, when I was a kid, he'd call me at 6 o'clock in the morning. Honey, are you up? Good, you better be up. You know, he'd call me at 11 o'clock at night to, again, test me. I mean, my father's just a guy who's never stopped. His entire life has been like that, whether it's in business, no matter what he sets his, mind to, The Apprentice, et cetera, the presidency, the way he campaigned. I mean, there's never been a person in political history that's campaigned as hard as my father has, and frankly, as hard as our family did. And, when you saw Biden, I was talking about, obviously, Biden not leaving his basement in Wilmington, Delaware right there, but you see these farmers. I go all over the country. You'd be with coal miners. You'd be with farmers. You'd be with, first responders, cops, just great Americans that own small businesses, et cetera, right? These people are up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they don't come back sometimes until midnight, from work. And sometimes they're working 2 and 3 jobs. And, you're the president of the United States. I mean, you should set an example. And the one thing that no one could ever say about my father, as crazy as the media was, right? There's no person in the media, as much hatred as there often was for my father, who wouldn't say that he was the hardest working president this country has ever had. And
okay, so before we get to what I'm sure is just a riveting and compelling story from Eric Trump, I guess first Eric Trump is talking about how hard his dad worked when he was president. And then he's talking about how hard some farmers work, and it's all meant to make Joe Biden look bad? Is that the gist of this? Even the host's starting to look a little bit confused. Let's now listen to Eric Trump's anecdote, and I'm sure it's just endlessly inspirational.
And Greg, just a kind of funny little anecdote. I remember, so many different people from New York Times, et cetera, they'd be following him rally to rally to rally. These are 25-year-olds. They would be sleeping in a backpack, in the back of an auditorium after the 6th rally with 3 empty Red Bulls next to them, totally passed out. They couldn't keep up with him, yet, he's delivering hours and hours of speeches to different crowds where he has to keep such mojo, such energy going the entire time, such passion going. I mean, he would literally run these young kids who are following him around the press pool. He would run them into the ground. And, that's what this country needs. And, you look at around the world at the world leaders, do we think Putin has energy? Do we think, go down the list? I mean, these guys have, men and women have tremendous work ethic.
It's funny how the first guy he thinks of to praise for his energy is Vladimir Putin. Like down to every detail, this is just hilarious. And there's a certain disconnect from reality where Eric Trump says, listen, for all the things that were said about my dad, no one could say that he didn't work hard. And the opposite is true. Trump golfed a historic amount, more than any other president. Trump had endless so-called executive time on his schedule, which just means kind of hanging around watching TV hours and hours every single day. Trump often wouldn't come down to the Oval Office to even ostensibly start working until 10, 11, noon even. Trump stopped even pretending to do work for the final 6 to 8 months of his presidency. And towards the end of that, they weren't even publishing a schedule. They were simply putting out every day a note that said the president will work from early in the morning until late in the evening. He will have many phone calls and many meetings. Like they weren't even pretending to claim that Donald Trump was working towards the end. It's the opposite of what Eric Trump says was true about Donald Trump's work ethic. Now, one other thing. Eric's big example of Trump's hard work is Trump did lots of rallies. This actually relates to something significant. Doing rallies isn't work. It's not being the president. And in fact, Donald Trump was so obsessed with getting back to rallies even during the pandemic that it was part of the reason he wasn't doing any real work during the last half year of his presidency. But that's what they all see as doing work and as being busy. And there's just a fundamental misunderstanding, a lack of understanding as to what it is a president should or could even be doing. And then praising Putin at the end is just sort of the cherry on top. I don't know why Eric keeps doing interviews. Don Jr. says disastrous, crazy, and dishonest things, but he's better on TV. Eric just seems confused, and half of what he says is completely unintelligible.